Hello, and thank you, NACIS. I'm here to spend just a few minutes today reporting on some polygon simplification tricks that I have learned from this very community. If you need to refer to these slides, you can find them at axismaps.com/NACIS2021, along with some notes and a rough transcript. Now, I usually write code for vaguely cartographic purposes, but earlier this year I wanted to try a novel and exciting thing called a static printable road map. Quickly I found I had forgotten, or perhaps never learned, a lot about turning spatial reference data into something visually useful, not least how to make excessively detailed polygons chill out when just a general idea of the shape will do. So I asked for tips from fellow cartographers, among them being some of you joining us here at NACIS today. The problem was that I could only remember two easy ways to generalize or simplify polygons. First is the simplify algorithms that you'd find in MapShaper, which, by the way, should always be the first stop, or in GIS, which tend to reduce detail for sure, but can make things kind of sharp and pointy. And second is the simplify path command in Adobe Illustrator, which makes things nice and rounded, but doesn't always generalize the shape as a whole very well. In my case, neither proved satisfactory, so I tried a few of the slightly less easy approaches that people were kind enough to suggest. I'll briefly share three of them here today, not in great detail, but hopefully with enough Googleable words for you to be able to find software-specific steps if any of this is new to you. The goal here is to have processes that could be repeated or automated and not have to manually edit every single polygon on your map. The first one is buffers. The basic idea here is to expand the polygon and then contract it back inward. This is a good one to try both first and last if you need to clean up your shape at the end. So here's the original shape, a state park in western Massachusetts. It looks like it's been cobbled together from various parcels, so there are a lot of fragments and bits poking out everywhere, far more detail than is needed in a simple road map. 200-meter buffer outward, followed by a 200-meter buffer back inward, fills in a lot of gaps and straightens some edges. It still has that unnatural official borders look, which may or may not be wise to keep, but it's a lot less crazy. Not bad, I'd say. The results depend a lot on your choices of buffer distances, how many iterations of this process you do, and line cap and join styles. Next up are concave hulls, which in essence are ways of finding a general shape from a set of points. To do this with my park, I want to convert it to points. That can either be the polygon's vertices or a set of random points within the polygon, which have a better chance of excluding some of the especially small slivers. Then I look for a concave hull tool in my GIS. QGIS has two different algorithms, and run it either here on my vertices or on my random points, and end up with a shape something like this. To me, it looks good for a small scale map, roughly encompassing the right shape, but appearing pretty obviously simplified if you look closely. You can control to some degree things like how tightly the shape fits around the points by adjusting some parameters in these tools, and results are certainly going to vary if you go with random points. The last one for now is a purely graphical approach, in this example using Illustrator, that involves converting the polygon to raster and then back to vector. So same old starting point, but this time pretend you're looking at Illustrator instead of GIS. Convert it to a raster, looks the same, but is now just an image. And give it a nice blur. Then trace it back to a black and white vector, fiddling mostly with that threshold parameter, which is going to essentially control how much of the blurry area you retain. Now in Illustrator, you'll have to clean up the background and reapply color. And the end result is a much more blobby shape here, but still more or less the right one. This does not exactly project authority when it comes to a reference map, but then again, maybe you don't want to be mistaken for official. It can be a really nice result for certain aesthetic goals or map scales. That's all for now, just a few approaches that I hope are helpful for anyone in the same boat as me. There are certainly a lot of other ideas to try, and perhaps you can refer to this slide later for a handful of them. And I'd love to hear other people's tips and tricks if you have time to share them in the NACIS Slack chat or somewhere else. But meanwhile, thanks to those of you who responded to me about this a while back, and thanks for listening today.